All right, hello everybody. This is the host of the podcast Tell Me Your Story. My name is Chris Baker Jr. and today's special guest to tell his story is Todd Alles. We're just gonna do how we always do. We're just gonna jump into it and talk about like the very beginning. Like, where'd you grow up at? How was your childhood?
Well, I grew up in the south side of Columbus, south end of Columbus. Several residents lived in Mohawk Street, Woodrow. Ended up on Parsons Avenue. Went to Marion Franklin High School. I don't know if are you from Columbus?
I'm actually from, I would say, I'm close to it, about an hour away. I'm up here in Sandusky.
Okay.
Or you would say Cedar Point.
Anyway, I grew up in the south end of Columbus. Went to Marion Franklin High School. It's considered a poor side of town. Was a knucklehead growing up. Got in a bunch of trouble and was kind of small, so I didn't play sports when I played Little League baseball, I played Little League football, open gym, that kind of stuff, until I got in the seventh grade, and a kid two doors down from me, a guy two doors down from me was about six years older than me, was into restoring cars and drag racing and doing all that kind of stuff. So instead of playing sports and doing what most of the kids in the neighborhood are doing, I'm learning how to tear an engine apart and put it back together and make it go fast. And so I fell in love with drag racing and cars in high school. So I didn't play sports in high school. The only thing I played in high school was the radio. So I got into quite a bit of trouble in school. And my senior year, it was May of my senior year, I hit a guy in the mouth in one of our shop classes with a rubber mallet, and ended up having to actually go to an expulsion hearing with the superintendent of Columbus Public Schools, and then I had to go to court because it was a felonious assault because I used a hammer.
Hold on, wait a minute, wait. Let's dig into this a little bit. How did this even happen?
We were in shop and we were making trowels in metal shop, and you knurl the handle and you put it in a vise, and you have to rivet the spade onto it. And so I had to go to the bathroom. So when I go to the bathroom, this kid takes my trowel, puts it in the furnace, gets it hot, puts it back in the vise. So when I put my hand on the handle of the knurled handle of the trowel, it's like bacon frying. And he's over there laughing. So I just picked up the first thing I could see, and which was a rubber mallet, and smacked him in the mouth with it.
I mean, did he get in trouble at all too? Because that was kind of, it's like.
Well, I think he lacked getting in trouble because he was the one that ended up with 22 stitches in his lip and a couple teeth missing.
And you hit him hard, man.
So I had to end up going to the superintendent to an expulsion hearing downtown Columbus superintendent's office with my mother, and then I had to go to court. And so my mom was freaking out because she wanted me to graduate from high school, and it was May 5th or something of that year. So somehow she got the judge and the superintendent of schools to kind of agree to. I tell everybody I invented shock probation because the judge said, I got a deal for you. And the superintendent, they said, we're going to let you go back to school. You get a 3-day suspension. You go back to school. If you get sent out of class for chewing gum, you're going to the boys' industrial school until you're 21 years old.
Wow.
And the other side of it, what the judge said was, you've got 2 weeks to bring me back proof that you've enlisted in the military since you like to fight so much. We got a little thing going on across the pond here. We'll give you an opportunity to, if you want to fight, we'll give you an opportunity to fight. So we'll give you 2 weeks to bring me back proof that you enlisted on a delayed entry program so you can graduate from high school and go. Well, I was getting ready to go join the Marine Corps, and a buddy of mine who had two brothers that were in the Navy was going down to join the Navy. He said, "Why don't we just join the Navy and we went on the buddy plan and we can, be together and all that kind of stuff." Well, recruiters lie. We were on the buddy plan. We were on the same flight to boot camp. That's the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
But so I enlisted in the Navy and left for boot camp in September of '65, and um, started out kind of the same way in the Navy that I was doing in school, and was doing stupid stuff and getting in trouble. And the chief petty officer who was a flight engineer, and I was interested in flying. I was on what they call Crew 80, which is you get to go out and fly as an aft observer in a P3, but you weren't assigned to a crew. And so he grabbed me by the shirt, put me up on the wall in the barracks, and said, you remind me of myself when I was in the Navy. So the chief straightened me out, and he says, I'm either gonna get your butt squared away, or I'm gonna run you out of my Navy.
Oh man.
So he said, I'm gonna turn you into a flight engineer. So I started studying to be a flight engineer. I ended up as a flight engineer on a P3, and which was awesome. So I was in the Navy 4 years, and got out of the Navy basically to go back to college so that I could become an officer in the Navy, go back in the Navy as a pilot. Well, I let things get in the way, like getting married, having kids, doing all the stuff that kind of hampered that a little bit. And so, but I started playing semi-pro football. I'd gotten a little bit bigger, and it wasn't really semi-pro. It was unpaid semi-pro. It was the Central Ohio, Heart of Ohio Adult Tackle Football League. And fell in love with the sport. And the neighborhood I lived in, Southmore Junior High, was in our back, right by the baseball diamond to the school was right by my where I parked my car in the parking lot in the apartments.
Now, hold on. This was your first time playing sports, correct?
Yeah. I played fast pitch softball in the Navy. I boxed in the Navy. Another thing, I get assigned to VP 45. I check in. I'm going to my bunk, and I'm putting my stuff on a bunk, and this guy, he was like, I don't know, 6 foot, 220, starts giving me a ration of crap about where I put my bag, and you can't sleep in that bunk and all this kind of stuff, and pushed me. So I jacked him, and the master at arms, who's the kind of the duty barracks patrol or whatever, comes in, breaks it up, and takes me down to the master at arms office, where I come to find out his name was Jesse Joyner. He was a 4-time All-Navy middleweight champion.
Oh.
And he said, how much do you weigh? And I said, 145 pounds. And he says, do you ever box? And I said, not really. And he said, well, you know how to use your hands pretty well. And I said, well, I grew up in a neighborhood where you had to use your hands pretty well to get by. And he said, well, I'm going to give you a choice. He said, I'm on the boxing team down here. We need a welterweight. That's 147 pounds. And he said, you come down to the gym, you start working out with us and learn how to box. I won't write you up and send you to captain's mess. You don't want to do that. I'm going to write you up and you're going to go to captain's mess. So that's how I got started in boxing. But so between boxing and being a flight engineer, it kind of squared me away, really redirected me and helped me get my life in some kind of order. But going back to how I got started, wanting to coach was they were having baseball, junior high baseball, and
wait. Before we got to fix this up a little bit. We got to go back into your military career a little bit, dig into that a little bit, and just kind of dig about. But because nobody in your family served or anything, right? Were you the first?
Oh no, I was. My sons broke the line. My birth father. I was adopted by my stepdad, who tried to get in the Air Force and couldn't because he had an eardrum burst and he couldn't hear out of an ear. But my birth father was in the Navy. His dad was in the Navy. All of his brothers were in the Navy. They were all Seabees in World War II.
Now, did you know that before you got into the Navy, or did
I
they
did
find out
know that
later?
my dad. Now, I did know that my birth father had served in the military. Then I started doing genealogy and found out that I've had somebody in my family tree in every war, all the way back to the Revolutionary War.
Wow, that is wild.
So my sons were the first in line to break the service. Every other person in that line had male anyway, had served in the military. So
So being in the Navy, how was it just that first couple of weeks? It was kind of like you said, you were getting the fights.
well, I was only 17 years old when I went in. I mean, I was a baby in my class. I turned 17 in January of my senior year and graduated in June. Um, but I had a dad that was like living with a drill sergeant, so I was kind of used to having somebody in my face,
Yeah.
uh, yelling and screaming and making me do what I'm supposed to do. So boot camp was pretty much it was a change. The military strips you down to nothing and then builds you back up. So, and that's, you know, they didn't have to do much to strip me down because I already knew where they were going with this. But so then I ended up, I got through boot camp in good shape. I was a recruit chief petty officer, which was the top recruit in a company of 100 guys. So then I couldn't get in A school right away because there was so many at that 1965. There were so many guys going in the Navy and the Air Force to stay out of Vietnam that it was like, I couldn't get into A school. I graduated from boot camp in December of 65, and I couldn't get in my A school until August. So they gave me, because I was the top recruit in my company, they gave me a choice of you can stay here and be a company commander's aide, which it was something that they were just starting, where you're kind of like an assistant drill sergeant, or you can go to Washington, D.C. and be attached to the unit that guards John Kennedy's grave, his tomb, or you can go to Japan on embassy duty and you wear civilian clothes and end up being a chauffeur for the ambassador or whatever. So I chose to stay in Chicago or in Great Lakes, basically because I could get home in 9 or 10 hours hitchhiking, and we got a long pass. I could get back home. But so that was kind of a cool experience. Then I went to A school in Memphis as a jet engine mechanic, and then got transferred to VP 45 in Jacksonville, Florida, which is a patrol squad in Jacksonville, Florida. And then I, spent 2 years in VP 45, and then mustered out in January '69.
Wow.
So
Now talk about your boxing career once you got into that.
I, I I liked it. It was fun. By that time I was like 5'10", 145 pounds, so I was fairly tall for a welterweight, and I had pretty good wingspan, pretty long arms. So I was pretty successful. I was 38-2, and
Let's talk about that first match.
you only box for 3 minutes. You only box for 3 rounds, 3 2-minute rounds in the amateurs. But our trainer uh, got us ready for. He trained us for 8 rounds, so the 3 rounds would be like a walk through the park. So our training regiment every night was going 3 minute rounds, and a round might be laying on your back with your feet 6 inches off the floor, and a guy throwing a medicine ball into your stomach for 3 minutes to toughen up so you could take a punch. His philosophy was nobody's ever been knocked out by getting hit in the stomach. you get knocked out by getting hit in the solar plexus or the face. So it was tuck your arms in, cover your head, and let them hit you in the stomach, but keep everything in tight so they can't knock you out. When you throw a punch, you duck your head under your arm, you throw the other way, you go the other way with it. So, I was pretty successful at not getting hit, and did okay you know, did well enough. I won 38 fights out of 40 and lost two.
How
Two
would,
fights I lost with the same guy both times.
how
But
did you feel going toe to toe with Mike Tyson? Would
not
you
happening. Not happening.
you could make it around with him?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of backpedaling and running.
You'd be like, I don't think this is for me. I'm out.
Yeah.
So once you got out of the military, that's okay. Now we're up to where we need to be.
Well, I was working at Westinghouse where my dad was. My mom and dad both worked at Westinghouse, so I got a job there working in the factory. And I came home from work one night, and a couple of the kids, because this was in the same pretty tough end of town that I grew up in. These two kids got their coach up against the backstop. So I jumped the fence and pulled them off. I said, "What are you guys doing? This is your coach. You're not supposed to be attacking your coach." And so he said, "How would you like to be my assistant?" I said, "Sure, I'll help you out." And it put me in a position to help direct these kids away from the path I took. It was like uh, helping them develop some things in the 7th and 8th grade that'll keep them out of trouble and put them on the right path in life. And really, really loved doing that. Wanted to be a coach. I wasn't a real good student in high school. I graduated with 1.7 grade point average. And but back then, with the GI Bill, and Ohio State was the only school that I could afford to go to. And because I was a veteran, and because I was I went to high school in the state of Ohio. That back then that meant something. So they had to let me in school, but I had to wait till winter quarter. I couldn't go fall quarter. And so once I started, uh, I thought about going out for the football team because I played in that Central Ohio League and was fairly good, made the All Star team, and thought I was good enough to play, and wanted to coach football, and didn't know that much about it. So, what's the best way to learn about football is be a part of the program. So, I went in and talked to Coach John Mummy, who was a freshman coach at the time and in charge of walk-ons, and asked him about walking on. And he told me when to report to camp and all this kind of stuff. He says, "You're not," because I only weighed about 160, 165 pounds at the time. He says you're not real big. You need to be a little bigger. And I said, "How big do I need to be?" So he said, "You need to be at least 180." Well, that was in March of 1974. When I walked on in September of 74, I was 185.
Whew.
So
What did you do in
I
that
was
time period?
I was working out like crazy, and working out like crazy, I was married and had kids, so I'm living in an apartment complex with a bunch of guys that were Ohio State football players, Doug Plank and Scott Donnelly and Kurt Schumacher and Larry O'Rourke, and all these guys were living there. So I started working out with them, and so then I tried out for Ohio State. There was 38 of us that walked on, and they kept 7. I was one of the 7 that they kept, and I still think it had something to do with being a veteran, being a little bit older, especially being a Navy veteran, and Coach Hayes being a Navy veteran himself. He was a lieutenant commander, commander of a ship in World War II. So I think that more so than my ability, that probably had had a lot to do with me making the team, being fortunate enough to be a part of that.
Give us a taste.
That changed it.
Give us a taste
That
of what
changed
it.
the direction of my whole life.
Yeah. Sorry. Give us a taste of what it was like playing for the legendary coach.
I was 26 years old when I walked on, so it was totally different for me than for an 18-year-old kid coming out of high school. And I'm paying attention in meetings and I'm listening to what he's saying because I know that it's, going to help me get someplace. And those guys aren't paying attention. So I'm saying, hey, you knuckleheads need to listen. This guy knows what he's talking about. He's trying to help you become better men and husbands and fathers and so on. But it was I didn't have a lot of interaction with coach because he was an offensive coach to begin with, and I played defense. But the time that I spent with him every single day in practice was as a scout team player on the defense. So I was the scout teamer against the number one offense in practice. So he got to at least see how hard I worked and how I didn't have a lot of fear because I lived a life that these kids couldn't understand. I wasn't afraid of them because they were 6'5", 280 or whatever. Sometimes that I ended up on the short end of the stick because of that. But I bounced right back up and came back and did what I had to do and earned his respect and the respect of the other players and coaches. And it was awesome. It was a great experience. Great experience for me.
So you're talking about like you're shorter than the other guys. I know that feeling for sure. See, when I was in high school, I was 5'5", but with them shoulder pads on, I was probably about 4'6". So going against everybody else, I was like, okay, let's do this, bring it. And
there you go.
out of all the positions they had me play, I was playing nose tackle, so I had to go up against the big boys.
Yeah, but you were already under his pads
Oh
when
yeah,
you were standing up. Yeah.
doing the bear crawl right through them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if they had a fast quarterback, I'd be able to get them because I played the slot receiver on the opposite side of the ball, so I had the speed.
Good.
But
you said you played at Upper Sandusky?
yep,
Yeah, I know where that's at.
Sandusky High.
Yeah.
We ended up my class. I think we were the first ones since the year I was born in '93 to make the playoffs. And I mean, it was just a cool thing to win the conference and just hearing. I mean, I still can go back and just remember like freshman year them talking about, this is the team. This is the team that's going to change the program. That's going to help us out and take us to where we need to be again. And sure enough, I think if everybody would have continued to play throughout the years, because you know how it goes, you play and then eventually people start falling off and start doing other sports. I think really if we would have stuck together, we probably would have ended up winning state maybe. But we made it to the second round. And then
So you played for the Sandusky Blue Streaks.
Yep.
I was the head football coach at Perkins High School when you were born.
Really?
Yeah.
In '93.
Yeah. I went there in '92. I went there in August of '92. I was the head football coach, '92, '93, '94 seasons, and then was assistant principal, and then moved into administration and left and went to North Olmsted High School and then later Avon Lake as a principal. But yeah. I was in Sandusky. I lived on right off Perkins Avenue.
Really?
In Westchester.
Wow.
Yeah.
How was Perkins in the '90s? I don't really hear much
It was
about it.
good. As a matter of fact, it's I was the head coach there for 3 years and then moved into administration. Mark Hollers replaced me. He was the head coach there, and then Rocky Farlow came in and they won a state championship, I think in '98 or something like that.
Huh.
So yeah, they were really good.
because I remember hearing about the like kind of like the glory days where they had like the
Yeah,
70s, the 80s, the 90s. They were rock stars. They were in the playoffs, like running
yeah,
up to be state champions every year, pretty much. Like
yeah,
like it seemed like everybody was good for a while, and then once 2000 came around, it started going downhill from there.
yeah, yeah.
So did you
So,
get you wait, so Orlando? No, you're probably gone by then because that was
no,
97.
Orlando was at Sandusky High when I was at Perkins, and matter of fact, he and my son, who was like 5'6" or 5'7" in high school, loved basketball. They were really good friends, and they both played basketball. And it was like watching this mountain and this little mouse. And they walked through the Sandusky Mall, and it's like got Orlando way up here and Justin's way down here. That was pretty cool. Matter of fact, I just saw Orlando at the spring game and talked to him a little bit. He remembered who I was and remembered, hanging out with my son Justin, playing basketball in the summer and stuff. So
All right, yeah.
yeah.
Let's start digging into that. Your coaching career. So wait, so after you were did you play like with the Buckeyes at all? Like, did you have playing time, or were you just practice squad?
No, no. I was a scout team player, a role, just a kind of a role player, and but it opened some doors for me. I stayed on as a graduate assistant coach, so I could learn more about football, and then got to a point where I was a graduate assistant coach in '76 and the spring of '77, and I had to start paying bills, so I needed to get a job, and that's like I got the head football job at. I got my first year at Dublin High School. It's Dublin Kaufman now, but it was only Dublin High School back then. One school in the old city of the village of Dublin. Um, so I was assistant coach my first year there, and then I had to take the head baseball job to get the teaching job. But I coached baseball because they paid me to do it, but I wasn't a great baseball coach. But then my first year, uh, the head football coach came in after the last game in the locker room and said, "I'm out of here Monday. I'm going to Worthington Steel, take a sales job." And he was also the head wrestling coach. So the superintendent called me out of class that Monday, and he said, "Hey," he says, "I need a wrestling coach." He was from Portsmouth, Ohio. So he said, "I need a wrestling coach." And I said, "Mr. Griselle, I don't know anything about wrestling. I've never even been to a wrestling meet." He says, "Well, you know as much as the last guy." He says, "You want that head football job, don't you?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Well, then let's see what you do with wrestling." So, but we got the guy that came in to replace the coach in the classroom had just graduated from Hiram College, and I think God planted him there. That's when I really started thinking, God really is in there doing some right things. So, because he had been the the Division III 167-pound national runner-up and lost 2-1 in the finals.
Wow.
And I said, called Mr. Griselle back. I said, "Here's your wrestling coach." He says, "No, you're the wrestling coach. He can be your assistant." So I just said, "Okay, let's let's you go teach him how to wrestle. I'll go sit in the corner and take attendance." But then I was the head baseball coach. And then 2 years later, the AD left. So I became the athletic director, the head football coach, and I dropped the other sports. So that was I was the head coach there for 10 years at Dublin, and then moved into administration and became the principal at Oberlin High School. I was at Oberlin High School for 2 years, and then got the itch to get back into coaching, and Sandusky Perkins job opened up, so I applied for that and ended up at Sandusky Perkins and was the head coach there for 3 years. Moved to assistant principal for 2 years, and then the guy that was the principal at Dublin, when I was the AD there, became the superintendent at North Olmsted.
Hmm.
So he called me and said, I want you to come to North Olmsted and work over here. So I took off and went to North Olmsted, and I was there for 6 years and went to Avon Lake for 2 years and then retired from public education. We're from Columbus. So I'd run into Coach Tressel at a former player golf outing and talked to him about would there be any possibility for me to get reconnected to the program in some capacity because I'm going to be retiring and moving back to Columbus. And he says, yeah, I got something you can help us do. He says, I got these guys that we call them academic encouragers, where they go check guys' classes and stuff. He said, then you can work in a weight room for the early part of the day, and then go check classes in the afternoon. So I did that for a while, and then that I moved from that into assistant in recruiting. So I'm starting to evaluate film and do that kind of stuff, and still that replaced the weight room part. So I still check classes, but did some film work, film breakdowns. And then he came in and he said, we're going to restructure everything in recruiting. How would you like to be a assistant recruiting, off the field recruiting guy, and assist Coach Tucker in football operations? I said, sure, I'd love to do that. So let's see, I did that from 2003, October of 2003 until January of 2007. We are in Arizona, Glendale, Arizona, getting ready to play Florida for the national championship. This is 2006. And my wife and I are out to dinner, and my phone rings, and it was Nick Saban. And he said, hey, I just took the football job at Alabama. I need a director of football operations. He said, I want you to come down and be my director of football operations. Nick and I have been friends since 1978. I mean, that's a long, my first year as a head football coach at Dublin High School was his first year as a defensive backfield coach at West Virginia. I had an all-American safety that he came in to recruit. So once he came in to recruit, we started talking. We'd get on the board and talk defensive back stuff, and so we became friends and stayed in touch. And when he was with the Browns, my son played for him at Toledo, as a matter of fact, for at least 1 year, because then Nick went to the Browns. But my wife and I would go over and go out to dinner with him and Terry, and we were just friends. And so he said, when's your game? This was on a Friday night. He said, when's your game? When's the game? And I said, it's Monday. He says, man, I hate to ask you to leave, but I said, I need you down here sooner than later. And I said, what do you mean? And he says, I'd like to have you down here no later than Sunday for a meeting. We're having a staff meeting on Sunday.
Wow.
So I said, well, I told my wife, I said, it was Nick Saban. He just offered me a job at Alabama as director of football operations. She said, when you leaving? But I said, well, probably tomorrow morning. So I went down to the concierge and I said, can you get a hold of Southwest or whoever and because he told me, he said, don't fly straight into Birmingham. Go home, pack enough to last you till June, and then come down, but be here for a 1 o'clock meeting on Sunday. So I flew out the next morning at 8 o'clock back to Columbus. I'm packing stuff up and cleaning out my office at Ohio State, and jumped on a plane and got there at 12:45 for a 1 o'clock meeting on that Sunday. But that was in January. That was January 7th of 2007, and I was director of football operations for him till August of 2008, because the director of football operations at Ohio State retired, and I came back to Ohio State as the director of football operations, which was home. We had grandkids and stuff, And so then I was at Ohio State until we were asked to find other jobs. So
Well, I'm thinking like right now, how was it? Because you're doing a lot of moving around. Was it tough on your family at all during that time period, or were they pretty
it
open
was
for it?
it was tough on my wife because I was always gone. I mean, I was gone. I had to leave, and then she had to take care of the moving and whatever, selling of the house or whatever, and then catch me. Like when I went to Alabama, she says I'm not leaving because she was a teacher. She said I'm not leaving my kids. I'll come down in June after school's out, but I'm gonna come down here now. And I said, well, it's probably best because I'm going to be working 12, 14 hours a day, 7 days a week anyway. So, but yeah, we made 23 moves in our 32 years of marriage.
Just thinking about that. Woo,
Yeah.
my goodness. Now, out of all the places that you've been so far, what would you say was probably your favorite? I'm guessing Columbus, but
Yeah, well, being a Buckeye, and Columbus being my home and my family being here, it's I made the most out of every place I've been. We really loved it in Sandusky. We loved Sandusky. We had some great friends there. I was in the Elks Club and the IAB. We belonged to that, so we could go in as auxiliary members. And we had a great group of friends that I just went and met with last Saturday. They were down at Top Golf here in Columbus, and I went over and a couple of my former players. Well, one of my former players, he's now the athletic director at Perkins, Teddy Sturzinger's son. Weston was playing in the AAU basketball tournament down here, so we went over and met them and last Saturday at Top Golf and spent some time. But if I was going to live anywhere in the state of Ohio, not Columbus, it would be Sandusky. We loved it up there. That was a great experience.
yeah, I mean, and then if you've been up here lately, Sandusky has really, I mean, since you were up when you were living here, it's really come together.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
try to tell my wife that because she's from the like out there in Tiffin, like lower Sandusky is what I call it, but it's called upper Sandusky.
yeah,
So she's coming from that small village and coming up here to Sandusky, and I'm like, I don't know. Well, I really didn't appreciate Sandusky. I'll say that until I started dating her, because then I found out like how good I really have it here because there's so much to offer here. As for
yeah,
like where she was at, it was like if you wanted to go to just a grocery store to get something, you had to drive like 15 to 20 minutes just to get
yeah,
something. As for here, it's like 10 minutes, if that, five,
yeah,
depending on where you're at. And then it's not just about Cedar Point no more. You got Kalahari here, Grateful Lodge, and it just continues to grow. You got the Cedar Point forest parks now that you get people from all over the world playing baseball at. I could go
yeah.
on for days, but
Well, we that park you're talking about, my 12-year-old grandson was playing DYA tackle football down here, and took him up there for a big tournament, and that place is gigantic.
it is huge.
Yeah, that's out there where that drive-in movie used to be. They used to have a drive-in movie out there and stuff, and
Yep, you had that, and I think it was also the airport too that was there.
yeah, there's an airport out there. Yeah, yeah, little airport. And they had the greatest turtle soup on the planet at the East Side Cafe right there on. I think it was on Route 6.
Oh yeah.
That was great. And Cameo Pizza wasn't bad either.
Cameo Pizza, man, you can't go wrong with that.
Yeah,
The first time I left here after high school, like just going out traveling, I thought Cameo was like a worldwide thing. I didn't realize it was just a local place.
yeah, that was just a little family from Sandusky. It's a family operation.
So I was like, I think I was in Indiana out there, and I was looking around. I was like, dude, I really want some Cameo right now. And I started looking up on the phone. They're like, no, there ain't no Cameo out here, man. That's only back home. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
So if you want any kind of pizza, you're better off getting like Papa John's or Domino's. I was like, nah, man, I want something close to Cameo Pizza or Chat Matt's, something close to it.
Yeah. Well, Chet and Matt's were brothers they all worked there at one time together, and then Chet and Matt broke away and opened their own place, which is still pretty good pizza.
A lot of people don't know
Yeah.
that. Believe it or not. I think they've been, I think I read a sign somewhere that says it's been 70 years since they've been separated from them guys. Chet Matz has been around.
Yeah.
Like, wow. But it's the same, it's like the same pizza pretty much, but just
Same
different
pizza.
names.
Yeah. Same recipe. Yeah.
Anyway, so being an administrator, kind of tell us a little bit more about how that was. I mean, coming from, like you said, you didn't really play sports, and then you, like, after you got done with, you know, coaching and everything, now you're recruiting people and you're all about it now.
Well, the guy that hired me at North Olmsted is the one that talked me into getting to becoming an assistant principal at Dublin High School. So my last 2 years of Dublin High School, I didn't coach. I was an assistant principal there, and I really didn't want to do that. I got my master's degree in education administration, but that was only to get more money. Get paid on a master's degree instead of just a regular teacher's contract. And so he said, when you're a classroom teacher, you impact 130, 140 kids. As an administrator, you impact everybody in the building. So you can impact a bigger number. Maybe not personally every day in a classroom, but just by how what you do. So he said, try it for a year. If you don't like it, this is being an assistant principal. He says, I'll make you a deal. You come in, you're assistant principal for 1 year. You don't like it, I'll let you go back to your old teaching job, and I'll hire somebody else. After about 2 months, I fell in love with it. It was you really can make a difference in a kid's life if you genuinely care about them and about their future, and about, it's not just disciplining kids and suspending them and doing all that kind of stuff. This punishment without education is a waste of time. I mean, you're not going to change a kid's life by just suspending them from school and ignoring them. You make sure they understand, look, you did this, and this is this is the consequence for that, but it doesn't make you a bad person. Um, it's a learning experience for you. Now, if you don't learn and you continue to make the same mistakes over and over and over, that's on you. But you've got a chance to, you know, redirect your life and do things different. And it's really been cool for me. Um, I got forced on Facebook by my granddaughter. She graduated from high school, from Strongsville High School, and she had a bunch of pictures that I wanted to see. And she says they're on Facebook, and I said, "What is Facebook?" And she told me it's a thing, it's an app. And I said, I don't want to do that stuff. I don't have time for this. She said, well, if you want to see these pictures, you're going to have to get an account. So I opened the account specifically so I could see her pictures. And then I started getting all these friend requests from former players and former students and people I worked with. And so it was a great tool to get me back in touch with people in my life, people that I'd coached back in 1978, 79, 80 at Dublin High School. I'm Facebook friends with them now. I formed a group on Facebook. It's DHS football 1978 to 87, and I keep putting inviting all these people in. We have reunions in the July 4th weekend every year. So it's put me back in touch with a lot of people. I'm in touch with kids that played for me at Perkins and on that. So that using it that way, social media is good. I don't like getting on there and getting into that political stuff and getting into arguments and
Thank you.
making opi- making opinions. And who cares about what I think? Who cares
Preach
about my opinions?
it. Preach it, man.
But you can use it for good, and I try to do that. I try to use it for good, and I saw a guy today at the goes to our church. He said, I really enjoy the stuff you put on Facebook. You put upbeat stuff, positive stuff, a lot of scripture uh, on there. I changed that part of my life too. I came. Matter of fact, I was in Sandusky when I made that change, and started going to Grace Episcopal Church downtown Sandusky, and um, got on the vestry. I moved back down here, and I'm an elder at our church, and so that's changed, and that was a lot to. Jim Tressel has a lot to do with redirecting the spiritual side of my life. Being around him at Ohio State and coaches Bible study and all the stuff that really counts. And so that's been probably I've had a lot of good things happen in my life because of my um, the chief hanging me on the wall, telling me you're going to square you away or run you out of my Navy, and then Coach Hayes and people that people in my life that God put in my life to redirect me and put me in a better place.
And really, just think about that, like for a moment. Like you went from a kid that had like you said, 1.7 GPA,
Yeah,
and then you were,
started smoking cigarettes at 11 years old.
yeah. I mean, you had all this stuff going on, but there God was that whole time, and even before you had that relationship, He was working in your life.
Yeah,
Directing you every step of the way, and it's like
yeah.
I could only imagine that were you in tears once you got saved?
Uh, it was a yes, the transformation, the total transformation.
Once
You know,
you yeah, like once it like started to come together, you started putting piece by piece to the picture of your life.
yeah,
That God was there all along. Like He was just waiting for you
yeah.
to say, "Hey."
We have a program at our church called the Journey, and you actually go back and they use these little post-it notes, events back in your life, and you actually get to see before you knew God was in your life that He was in your life, and He made this happen. My birth father was an abusive alcoholic. God put my stepdad in my life because that's the kind of structure I needed. That's the kind of person in my life that I needed to look up to, and redirect me. One thing that I think I might have been 8. My sister was 6, and she hit me in the stomach with a ball glove, and I backhanded her. And my dad picked me up, and I mean, he got in my face about, "Don't you ever put your hands on a female ever." He said, "Your mother went through that crap, and you are not going to be the kind of person that's going to, abuse women." I said, "Well, she hit me with the ice." He says, "I don't care what she did. There's nothing that she could do that makes it okay for you to hit her. Don't you ever hit another female." And I don't put my hands on women.
That's a good lesson, though.
I'm 8 years old.
You were only 8. I mean, that's the
I
perfect
was,
time. You still got a sponge going on.
yeah.
You probably remembered it like that was yesterday.
He was the master at sending a strong message. I'm probably, I don't know. I was probably about the same, 8 or 9 years old. I'm riding in the back seat. I roll the window down. I throw a tissue out the window. The next thing I know, I'm eating the back of the front seat. He slams on the brakes, opens his door, says, "Go back and get it." I went back and picked it up, got back in the car, and he said, "Don't you ever throw anything out of a car again." To this day, I don't throw anything
No
out of a
litter,
car.
man. You ain't littering.
So don't litter. Be better than that.
Yeah.
Be better than that.
And
So I've had a lot of blessings put in my life, a lot of people put in my life that have really helped. That chief, and he and I are still close. I see him at least once a year, talk to him on the phone every couple months. He's in his 80s. He's got cancer. Um, but I stay in touch with him, and I make sure that every time I talk to him that he understands he had a huge impact on my life and changing the direction of my life. So
It almost sounds like a movie, man. The way you say, like when he put you up against the wall.
yeah, I'm going to square you away or run you out of my Navy. That was what he
And like I could see that be like a quote somewhere.
said. Yeah,
Hey, maybe it will be one day.
you never know.
Um, People are probably wondering what is it like with Nick Saban being you guys having a good relationship, pretty much best
We
friends.
we still we still have a great relationship. I don't get to see him as much as I'd like to, and he's busy. And neither one of us are guys that just pick up the phone and just to shoot the breeze. If we don't have something specific, a reason to do it, we don't really. We're just not those kind of people. But he, I like when he plays. Well, I'm back in coaching now. I'm back where it all started. I'm back at Dublin Kaufman High School where my career started this year, coaching defensive backs. But um, when I was not coaching and I had the freedom, was retired. If he was playing the University of Kentucky in Lexington, or if he was playing University of Tennessee in Knoxville, I would go down. My wife and I would go down. We'd stay in the team hotel the night before the game, ride the team bus to the game. I got to see him and spend some time with him and stuff. But now that I'm coaching, I'm like, that's not going to be able to happen. But
Is busy now.
yeah, but we're still. I can pick him. I can pick up if I need something, and then he could provide it. I pick up the phone, call him, and say, hey, I need this or I need that, or I've got a friend that wants to come to a Alabama game. And last year, a good friend of mine does a father and daughter game every year. They pick a different game to go to, Notre Dame Southern Cal game or the whatever. And he called me. He says, "We want to go to we want to go to the Alabama Tennessee game. Can you help us out?" Or no, it was LSU, Alabama and LSU game. So I called Nick and said, hey, I got a friend that he's doing this father-daughter thing. And he gave them field passes before the game. They had great seats. They got a tour of the facility. I mean, he does those kind of things. He cares about his players deeply. Now, he could be a little volatile. he can melt your face. but he's if you do your job, he's easy to get along with.
Now, do you ever joke with him with all these like national titles that he's winning? Do you ever say, "Okay, you can stop showing off now"?
No, not really. Because here's the funniest thing. There was a girl, I think it was after his fourth or fifth national championship. There was one of the news gals was interviewing him, and they asked him, said, "Hey, you know, you've won 4 or 5 national championships. You've reached your goals. Have you ever thought about retiring?" And he looked at her and he said, "Winning national championships never been my goal." She says, "No, what do you mean?" He says, winning the national championship is a result of all the work that we put in. That's a result. That's not a goal. That's a result. He said, if I ever reach my goal, I probably will retire. And she said, what's that? And he said, to come out at halftime and the other team's on the bus leaving.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So he's off the field, away from football. He's a regular guy. He loves boating, loves playing golf. But he's a grinder. When it's football season, he's not doing any of those things.
Who are you currently coaching right now?
Who?
Yeah.
Coaching defensive backs at Dublin Kaufman High School.
Now you're in
Where
it's the spring training right now, ain't it?
Well, we don't have spring training. We're doing lifting, so we lift weights Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and so we're not actually physically coaching them. We're other than training their bodies and getting them ready for the game. Yeah, I think we got 10 days in the month of June that we're allowed to have. Uh, we're allowed to have groups of no more than 7 now. So yeah, yeah. Let's see, what's today? Friday, Thursdays. Uh, 2 quarterbacks and 5 defensive backs. So the quarterbacks work at one end of the field. The 5 defensive backs can work at the other end of the field. But that's it. You can only have 7 guys working with coaches at a time, and that's like for an hour or something. So we do that. If the weather permitting, we can take them out and just work on the basic stuff. But the real grind starts in July.
I'm just thinking, like, for a second, like, is that a big adjustment from college level to high school level? Just the ability and just be able to do stuff with the players?
The To be honest with you, the ability when you're at an Ohio State or an Alabama, you're working with the best of the best. You're working with the fastest, the strongest, you know the guys that are probably projecting to have a chance to play in the NFL. At the high school level, you're getting them, especially as freshmen and sophomores. You're getting the pure. That's coaching at its purest form. I mean, you're teaching techniques, you're teaching fundamentals, you're teaching them how to catch a ball, not to catch a ball, but how to catch a ball, and all the different footwork that it takes to play defensive back, and how to backpedal, and how to open your hips, and how to play the ball in the air, and all those basic things. So it's really, I remember part of our evaluation, even at Ohio State and Alabama, is how well is the kid being coached? How much better can we make him? If he's at this level and he's being he's got a really, really good coach, how much more can we, how much better can we make him?
Yeah.
So if you got a guy that's here and he's on the same level, but he's not being very well coached, but he's got a lot of upside, you're probably going to take that guy because you can elevate him more. The kid that's already doing everything right, doing the right techniques, and he's at this level with not as much growth, he's the one that you're going to probably pass on.
And I'm thinking that, like, too, at the high school level, you see these guys after being at the college level, you see a lot of guys that have the potential. So you had that desire inside you to want to work with them guys, and like, I know you
Yeah,
got it in you.
yeah. Well, the job of any coach is to maximize, help that young man maximize his ability to bring value to himself and value to the team. And you do that through repetition, teaching them, we're pretty demanding. We This is the way you do it, and this is how you do it. If you want to get on the field, this is what you got to do, and this is how you got to do it. You don't have to be on the field, but if you want to be on the field, this is what you need to do. And then you just keep reinforcing that and repetition and rep it and rep it and rep it until it becomes, they don't have to be, especially on defense. If you're thinking on defense, you're stinking on defense. You can't think, you got to react.
So I was
So,
told too. You're thinking too much. You're thinking too much.
yeah, can't think, you got to react, got to go.
Just do it. And then I'm thinking also too, like outside of football, kind of going back. You only had a 1.7 GPA. I know I said it before, but how did it feel for you becoming like a principal, a teacher? I mean, was it like unreal to you at first? 'Cause you're like, I, I didn't see this happening for me, or
I had a 1.7 by choice. I had the ability. I just I didn't didn't maximize my talents. And I went to school because the law said I had to go to school. It wasn't something that I wanted to do. I wanted to drag race and I wanted to build engines and I had these other things in my mind. When I went back to school, I only had 2 quarters under a 3 point. I graduated with a 3.46 GPA and got my master's with a 3.89. So I had the ability, I just didn't utilize it. I didn't use it. I didn't use my tools. I had a toolbox full of brand new tools at 26 years old because I never used them. So it was, and that's what I used that as a point with kids that don't ever think that you can't do something. Don't ever think that because you only have a 1.6. Of course, I could have been a much better student than that. I chose not to be. I mean, I wasn't a 1.7 because I was a moron. I was a 1.7 because I just didn't apply myself.
Yeah.
You know,
You didn't have the
but
interest at the time.
and in college, when I was going to Ohio State, I was married and had 2 kids. My third child was born my senior year. I mean, this was I had a focus. I 3 years and 1 quarter I graduated. I didn't have time for a lot of monkeying around. I had to get busy because I had to put food on the table.
Hmm. Now,
So
was that tough too? Because you weren't getting paid while you were playing, so you had to actually work on the side too while you were.
I worked because I was a walk-on. I wasn't getting a scholarship. I wasn't on scholarship. So because I wasn't on scholarship, I was allowed to work. If you're on scholarship, you're not allowed to work, or at least back then you weren't. But they helped me out by getting me summer jobs, really good paying summer jobs, and like spring break, Christmas break. Instead of going to Florida on spring break, I was going downtown Columbus to the Manpower Center, working whatever kind of job I could find that day to go out and make some money. I had to do that. Summers I was working, uh, working a job, working a full-time job in the summer.
And then, I mean, that experience alone, playing, working, and taking care of a family, I can only imagine. Like, was it tough on you mentally? Or are you able to just be at ease?
Because of the kind of man my dad helped turn me into, I didn't have another option. You know, you don't have a choice in the matter. Um, I was a single parent for 10 years. I went through a divorce. I was a single parent for 10 years and had a couple teachers that I worked with said, how could you do that? You're head football coach, athletic director, single parent. And I looked there and said, what do you mean? How can I do it? I don't have a choice. There's no other option. I got to do it. I find a way to do it. I find a way to get it done. What's my option? To ignore my kids, to abuse to not do what I'm supposed to do as a man. My dad really impressed on me at a young age what being a man is all about. And he said, it ain't hair on your chest and shaving. It's how you live your life and dedicating yourself to committing yourself to being a good father and doing the right things. He said, it has nothing to do with, you know, age, hairy chest, and mustaches. It's got to do with how you function as a human being.
And it shows.
So,
It shows.
and I tried to teach my kids the same thing. I'm very proud. My kids are great parents. They do a great job with their kids, and I get to, I'm at the point in my life now where I get to go spoil them and then send them home. My grandkids.
Now, do you have more free time, or is it kind of like?
Well, I had more free time until I just took this job coaching football again. Now I've got less free time, but we still, and I told the coach that I said, here's a couple of things that's deal breakers for me. My grandson's going to be playing seventh grade football on Thursdays next year. I'm going to be at his games.
Oh, you best
The
believe
Ohio
it.
State Buckeyes, the Ohio State Buckeyes play in the shoe 8 times on Saturday next year. I'm going to be in the shoe. for those games. And if that doesn't work out, then I can't coach. And he said, we don't meet on Saturdays anyway. We meet on Sundays, so that's not a big deal. He said, we'll be done on Thursdays by the time your grandson's playing. So it all works out.
Now, are you like a full-on Buckeye fan?
Oh, are you kidding?
That's that's my question for you. So when you were working for Alabama, was it kind of yeah, I see it all in the background. When you was working for Alabama, was it
We didn't play against Ohio State when I was working at Alabama.
uh,
So I cheered for the name on my paycheck.
that's what I was wondering, like how does that work out? You're
that,
like,
that was a
well,
that was a tough. I root for Alabama unless they're playing the Buckeyes. I will never root for anybody but Ohio State ever.
oh man, I can only like let's go back to the national championship game. How were you feeling then?
It was I was really happy for the Buckeyes that they won. I felt bad for Nick, but I really didn't need to feel bad for him because he was okay with the result of the game because it was the result that their effort gave them. I mean, that's the one thing about him. He learns more from a loss than he does from a win, and he doesn't browbeat it. We would go after a loss. We would go in. We didn't have very many, but it would Monday mornings was the good, the bad, and the ugly. The 10 best plays, the 10 bad plays, and the 10 really ugly plays. You put them up on the board and say, see this? This is how we correct it. Goes on the shelf. You go on to the next game. That's in the past. Most important plays, the next one. The most important game is the next one.
It's a good philosophy. I could say that.
Yeah.
Now, if anybody's wondering, you said you were big on cars. Are you still? Is that still a hobby?
Not so much because I can't. I mean, I had I did buy a toy when I was working at Ohio State. I bought a '94 Corvette because I'd always wanted a Corvette. But then, I got to the point where I couldn't get in and out of it. I, I was too old and uh, not limber enough to get in and out of it, so I had to get rid of it. So, but cars are something that gets me from point A to point B now. I love it. I was at my brother, half brother, and I went to the Gator Nationals in Tallahassee, Florida this year. It was pretty cool because it was the son of one of the kids that played for me was racing for Jags Automotive, and he's going to be up Norwalk. I'm going up in Norwalk there. I think it's the second weekend in June. I'll be in Norwalk for the drags up there with the Jags guys. But it's to watch, to be a grandstander. Just sit in the grandstands or stand on the starting line and watch them race and stuff. But it's that I couldn't afford it today. You got to put a lot of money in those cars to make them go fast.
Yeah.
And I'd rather put that money in a house and a nice car and furniture and vacations and that kind of stuff.
I was just thinking that too. I was like, from when you were working on them compared to now, when you pull back the hood, is it foreign to you, or
Uh,
can you still?
you open the hood on them, you don't know what to do because it's like you got to be a computer wizard to work on cars today. When I
Yeah.
worked on them, you just took a wrench and did what you had to do. Today, everything's computerized.
And I think that's really that's a problem that's going on right now, or something. I heard at like some dealerships that they can't have enough cars because of like a chip or something malfunction.
Yeah, they can't get the chips. The chips are coming in from China. That's another thing. China's taken over the computer world, the technology world. So You don't play nice with China, you don't get chips.
No, and that takes out a lot of stuff that we're involved in right now. Cars, I mean,
Yeah.
could go on for days. But all right, as we wrap this thing up, I just want to say thanks for coming on and telling your story. But also, I have one more question
Okay.
for the watcher listener right now. Say somebody is currently, in your boat from high school, is graduating, heading out, and is unsure about his future, what he wants to do. What would your advice be to that person? Or
Myself personally, I think that every kid that's physically able, male and female, should serve 2 years in the military because it really helps you structure your life. I mean, not not go get in a war and die and all that kind of stuff, but the structure and look at the countries like Israel. They don't care who you are or what you are. You spend 2 years in the military. Egypt, you spend 2 years in the military. A lot of countries do that, and I think it's something that'll help. They'll be better students when they come out and go to college. Uh, I just if you don't know what to do in life, spend 2 years in the military, and it'll help. And you might find something in there that you can focus on and make a career out of.
Well said.
That would be my advice.
Well said. Well said. All right, so some bonus questions to ask you for the fans. With the NFL draft going on, who is your favorite team right now?
In the NFL,
Yes.
I was born into being a Browns fan because when I was a kid growing up, that's the only team you saw. I mean, we had 3 channels on a black and white TV, and the Cleveland Browns was the only game on television every Sunday. So you automatically became a Browns fan. I've kind of become, I'm not really a big NFL fan, especially after free agency and, they're bumping around and there's no consistency on the teams and all that kind of stuff. So I'll pick out a player or a coach that I really like and uh, kind of follow that team. I guess in my heart of hearts, I'd like to see the Browns, but they've broken hearts for so many broken hearts for so many years. Uh, it's not that I'm not a Browns fan. I'm really not an NFL fan uh, to the point where I want to go to the games or sit and watch games every Sunday. I don't watch. I watch more golf on Sunday on TV than I do football because those guys are competing. You're watching people going out and they're competing and up against the wall. Every one of them, every shot. And I love to watch competition. Basketball, I don't watch basketball. That's
No, I can't. I can't.
yeah. When they get the Final Four, I watch it just to watch them compete at the highest level. But I'm really not much of a spectator uh, of any sport other than being in that stadium watching the Buckeyes play. I love watching that. If I can't be in the stadium, I watch them on TV. So a lot of times I'll tape the game and go back and watch it and analyze it. But yeah.
Now, if you ask me the question, I am not a Browns fan. Not a Browns fan, even though I'm from Ohio.
Just don't tell me you're a Steeler fan.
I'm a Steeler fan.
Oh my.
I'm a Pittsburgh fan. Born into it, man, and been blessed to be able to see like 2 Super Bowls.
That's a great program. That's a great program. They've got a great history there, and they just made a great pick in the draft.
Yeah, Kenny.
By taking Kenny Pickett.
I'm
I
interested
think
to see
he's
how
the
it
best
goes.
I think he's the best quarterback in this class. Just like when Josh Allen and Mayfield all of them were coming out, Josh Allen was I said that he is the best quarterback in that group. And he's proven that he's pretty close to the best quarterback in that group.
I'm really
He's got,
interested to see how they use him, how he does with Pittsburgh, especially with Najee Harris back there, and if they build up the offensive line just a little bit more,
yeah,
they're gonna be scary.
yeah,
And everybody's counting them out, but I'm telling you,
yeah.
man.
I love to see them beat. They got one of my all-time favorite players now. Cam Hayward is one of my all-time favorite human beings. He is an awesome guy, not just as a player, but as a human being. He's just awesome, and I love to see him and Shazier when he was healthy, and another great kid. I was there when we were recruiting him. So, and Najee Harris and Fitzpatrick and uh, Minka Fitzpatrick. They got some guys that I like to watch play. Watt, I love watching him play. He's like his hair's on fire.
Is that a cool experience too to see guys that you coached, and seen in college playing at the next level?
Oh, awesome! That's what their goal was. It's paying off for all the hard work and dedication and sacrifices that they've made. Yeah, for sure.
All right, second question. Cats or dogs?
Neither. I'm allergic to both.
Neither.
I have allergies to both, and I I like I like animals. If you don't have the time, it's like having kids and then ignoring them. I'm so busy. My wife and I are both. We've been so busy our whole life that the dog would be home or the cat would be home by itself. All now cats are okay with that, but dogs aren't. So it's really unfair to the dog. I mean, you have an animal or whatever as a pet to share a life with, and I'm too busy for that. Yeah.
All right, the final question. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go?
I want to go to Scotland and Ireland, and I want to take my golf clubs with me, and I want to try to find its. Doing my genealogy, I found out that I was 57% Scotch Irish, so I would really like to dig back in, go uh, experience uh, those two places. That's and it's going to happen. I think probably 2023 or 2024. We're going to set aside 3 or 4 weeks and travel to Scotland, Ireland.
Sure, send me some pictures, man.
Yeah.
All right. If anybody wants to get a hold of you or contact you anyway, how can they do that? How can they reach out to you?
They could reach out to me through. They could DM me on Facebook, direct message, or they can hit my email account, which is buckeyeta@gmail.com. But that surprises you.
That's a giveaway, man.
Yeah,
Now I feel kind of silly asking you what's your favorite college team. It's like he's a Buckeye, man.
you better believe it. I bleed it.
But
I bleed scarlet and gray.
for the person that's watching or listening right now, this is an open platform for everyone. So if you'd like to come on and tell your story sometime, feel free to message me. But anywho, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Peace.